I'm not being fed. How many times have you and I said that to ourselves or felt the echo of our hunger for God articulated in those words? Or how many times have you heard people say, I left the Catholic Church because I wasn't being fed? It could be your friends, it could be your family, it could be your spouse, maybe even folks who used to inspire you in the faith. But how many times have you and I heard, I wasn't being fed or I want to be fed? This is Father Mark Toops, a priest of the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux, and we are excited to welcome you to week one of a preaching series entitled, I Want to Be Fed, which I think speaks to the hunger in all of our hearts for God, but certainly speaks to a comment that I think a lot of us have heard about former Catholics who no longer go to Mass or former Catholics who go to worship in other places who said they left because they weren't being fed. And as we introduced the new series this past weekend at Mass, we not only listened to that statement, right, I'm not being fed, but we asked a question, which is, ultimately, whose job is it to feed us? And we landed in Psalm 23, which Google says is the most searched for scripture passage in all of the internet. I think that's because it speaks to our hearts in lots of different ways. Not only does it talk about the sheep and the shepherd and being led through the dark valley, but it talks about what we need to know about whose job is it to feed us. Here's the thing about the sheep. Psalm 23, like so many of the other Psalms, is attributed to David, who before he was the great king of Israel, he was a shepherd of Israel. And this is what shepherds know about the wilderness. Because of the migration patterns of the sheep, because of the weather patterns, there are paths that are kind of worn into the wilderness that those sheep will wander through if they don't have a shepherd. A lot of those paths will lead them to dangerous places. And here's the other thing about sheep. If they aren't led, they'll eat almost anything that is in front of them. Kind of like us. We can get led in all different places in life, searching for what's gonna feed us, you might say. And I think I'm a lot like those sheep because I'll eat almost just about anything in my heart, craving for more in life that's in front of me. And what we said is that it's the shepherd's job to lead the sheep, and it's the shepherd's job to feed the sheep. And that's what we celebrated in the fact that Jesus Christ, who is the good shepherd, not only takes responsibility for leading us, but if you want to be fed, it's actually God's responsibility to feed us. We ended Mass by asking ourselves about our hunger. Where are the places that we have tried to satiate the ache in our hearts? And what is it that we've tried to do in our life because we weren't being fed? As we come back for week 2 of the series, next week we're going to ask ourselves, how is it that we can be convinced that God is really active in the world today? And if you want to learn a little bit more about what we preached in the first week, we would encourage you to go to our diocesan website, htdiocese.org. Right there on the homepage, there's a preaching button where you can hear this message and other messages in their entirety. As together we take the next 6 weeks of our life on a journey together, asking ourselves not only about the hunger in our hearts, but asking ourselves, how is it that God is going to feed us? God bless you.